This is Taylor Energy Company's Simba drilling platform, the largest offshore platform ever built by an individual. It may be difficult to imagine such a structure as a monument to gratitude, but to a great extent, that's just what it is. Much of the profit from the oil and gas recovered here will go to continue Taylor Energy's long-standing position as the only solely owned private company to drill in the federal waters of the Gulf of Mexico. But to the degree that those profits contribute to the private fortune of the late Pat Taylor, it will be spent to repay a debt Taylor felt throughout his life that he owed to the people of Louisiana, to be repaid through the higher education of their children. It is, to say the least, a unique commitment for a man whose boyhood heroes were the rough and tumble wildcatters of the Texas oil fields. Taylor himself was one of the last of that profoundly independent breed, and his life story is pure Horatio Alger. Poor boy rises to fame and wealth through honesty, diligence, and perseverance. If there was one thing Pat Taylor did not believe in, it was the self-made man. Everyone in his view received help along the way, and everyone owed a debt to those who provided that help. In his case, it was the Louisiana State University Petroleum Engineering School, which he was able to attend tuition-free as a penniless teenager from East Texas. A half-century after the dream of entering college became a reality for Taylor, the memory remained one of the most vivid and moving of his life.
I got to the bursar's cage. And I've told this story all across the country, talking to student financial aid officers from our universities. I get to the bursar's cage, and I had a bill for $205. In other words, it was $170, room and board. And that was a 7-day meal ticket. I mean, that was important to me. And a $35 student fee, that was it. Now, how I got out of paying out-of-state tuition, that's way beyond the statute of limitations, and LSU's never complained. But I didn't have $205. And I told that lady that. And she told me, well, then you go through that door down yonder. And so I walked in that door down yonder, and the lady's sitting behind the desk, and she says, "Do you have your papers?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she fills out a slip of paper. And she says, "Sign here." Well, I'd been on my own for several years. I mean, I had to know what I was signing. And I asked her what it was. And she says, "It's a deferred payment." Note. And I went to school.
In the 25 years that followed the founding of Taylor Energy, Pat Taylor became immensely successful. His success was the result of his own innovative style, unique in the industry. He owned Taylor Energy outright. No shareholders, no investors. All the potential reward was always his, and so was the immense risk. In the past, Taylor Energy specialized in restudying developed fields, and once it identified promising sites, acquired them, usually from major oil companies, reworked existing production, and drilled wells on the newly discovered prospects. The Simba field is made up of acquisitions from British Petroleum, Total SA, Kerr-McGee, and Unocal in the Mississippi Canyon area, but it is further offshore than any of the Taylor Energy predecessors. Further, it's a venture purely exploratory in nature. The identified potential promises to be the most productive in Taylor Energy's history. The initial 4 wells were drilled at depths of 9,000 to 15,000 feet to prove up approximately 65 million barrels of oil and gas equivalent. Once drilling operations are completed, 15 wells will be in operation. It is estimated that the field can recoup the cost of its development in 18 months of full production. The fabrication of Simba, setting it in place 40 miles into the Gulf of Mexico, southeast of Venice, Louisiana, and putting it into operation cost $60 million. Pat Taylor took such staggering costs in stride.
You risk large amounts of money, especially if you're drilling in federal waters, don't you see? You risk large amounts of money, but you don't do it for some marginal rate of return. You do it for huge returns. You don't do it on a 4 or 5% margin or something rather like that. If that is your concern, if you don't have the nerve to risk, and yes, in my case, I don't risk other people's money. It's my money.
The 700-foot-tall, 8,700-foot-ton jacket was built by Gulf Island Fabrication at its yard in Houma, as were the 8 massive skirt pilings. Some 800 people invested 140 man-years of effort in its construction over the course of 12 calendar months. From the base of its 425-foot pilings to the drill deck 86 feet above the waters of the Gulf, the Simba platform is entirely Louisiana-built. The platform's all-Louisiana genesis was no accident. Pat Taylor ordained it.
Nobody on my staff even suggested building her any place but in the United States. Nobody said Mexico or Singapore or any place else. There was a suggestion, gentlemen, that a Texas yard could do it cheaper. Nobody told me that a Texas yard could do it better. And I told my people, she'll be built in South Louisiana. And she'll be built by the workers. We're all in this together.
The mammoth 3-deck topside structure was built by Dynamic Industries at its yard near the port of Iberia. It consumed another 35 man-years of work by about 100 Dynamic Industry employees.
When I look at this, it is a story of America. Coming from where I came from, this would not have been accomplished in any society in the history of the world except our society. Only in America, the greatest nation the world has ever seen, and we owe her our debt. Thank you very much, and now I understand Mrs. Taylor's going to waste a bottle of champagne.
The enormous jacket was loaded onto a barge in June 2004 and towed into position in the Gulf about 40 miles south of Venice, Louisiana.
Well, we've got over 2 years of effort in this and an immense number of millions of dollars. And when she is turned loose into the ocean, she goes in head first. And now we have a situation out here that we have dozens of vessels and hundreds of people. And they have to all do their jobs. And I have no control. I cannot interfere. I've just got to watch and let it happen. So yes, I'm apprehensive.
But once in position, a problem arose. According to plan, the front chambers of the barge were flooded to tilt it so that a system of giant winches and hydraulic jacks could slide the immense structure forward far enough for gravity to take over. At that point, the huge jacket would slide into the water. However, due to an apparent combination of problems, the jacket resisted all efforts at launching. It was decided to return the barge to McDermott's yard in Amelia, Louisiana, and offload the jacket so that alterations in the launching system could be made. Once the modifications were complete, the Simba jacket was again towed into position in December 2004. This time, the launch went as planned. But the exultation felt by those who watched it was muted by the knowledge that Mr. Taylor had died only weeks before.
This, I think, was one of the highlights of his whole career, was to seeing this jacket being built, seeing it being put together, watching it, wanting to watch it go in the water.
The final stage of assembly began with the tow-out of the topsides from the port of Iberia. The three-level deck structure was brought alongside the derrick barge and prepared for installation. The 1,150-ton assembly was cut free of deck supports, slowly and carefully lifted, and maneuvered into position, then lowered precisely into place. There's no doubt Pat Taylor would have felt immense satisfaction at the completion of the greatest project of his remarkable career in the oil and gas industry. He would be equally pleased to see that under the leadership of his wife Phyllis, who had long been designated to succeed him in directing the company, Taylor Energy continues its unrelenting search for new reserves of oil and natural gas in American waters.
How do I assure continuity beyond my own lifetime? That is a problem. And I must depend upon Mrs. Taylor, and I must depend upon my officers, and I must depend upon what is truly a national board of directors.
He would be just as pleased that his other legacy, the nationwide drive he launched to make higher education available to all the nation's young people, continues to grow as well.
Stay in school, study and learn, take the right courses.
That program, known as the Taylor Plan, was set in motion during a speech to a class of underprivileged middle school students in 1988. Taylor offered to pay their college tuition out of his own pocket if they made their grades and stayed out of trouble.
How you doing, man? I'm Pat Taylor. Nice to see you. How y'all been? You've been working hard. It's been a long time, huh?
Under his tireless campaigning, the Taylor Plan spread throughout the nation and has now become a state-sponsored initiative in more than 20 states. And anyone who thinks Pat Taylor's unique entrepreneurial spirit or his passion for educating young Americans may diminish with his passing didn't know Pat Taylor.
Now, Mike Wallace described me as a rich white Republican oil man, and he made a hero of me, and I respect him for that. But what people have to understand, I'm just a poor kid from East Texas that's made a hell of a lot of money. And I want my life experience. I want Taylor Energy Company I want what I've done as far as extending opportunities to young people. I want that to be a legacy. Now, can I control that? Can I dictate that from beyond the grave? I'm not sure. Maybe I can.